Good evening, my name is Stephen Reid. Thank you for the invitation to join you online. I'm the Research Coordinator with the Christian Research Association. Our organisation was founded in 1985 to serve the Christian churches of Australia by providing and promoting high quality research that enhances the mission of the churches and the well-beings of individuals and society in Australia. So my brief this evening is to provide a summary of Christianity in Australia today. Most of the data I'm using comes from last year's census, national census, which was carried out in August. Firstly, in 2021, Australia's overall population was recorded at around 25.4 million people, an increase of 8.6% from the 2016 census, when it was around 23.4 million. During the same period, Australians identifying with a Christian denomination declined from 12.2 million people to just over 11.1 million people in 2021, a decrease of 8.6%. Christians now make up 43.9% of the population. Australians who identify with a non-Christian religion currently make up around 1 in 10 people, while those who do not identify with any religion represent almost 4 out of 10 Australians. As an aside note, I must stress that that does not necessarily mean those people are all atheists or unbelievers. The demographic characteristics from last year's census reveal that Australian Christians are an ageing population. Just over 1/4 were aged 65 or over, a significant change from 10 years earlier in 2011, when 17.9% of Christians were in that age group. At the younger end of the age spectrum, children aged under 15 made up 15.3% of Christians, a decline from 17.7% 10 years earlier. 53.6% of Christians were females and 46.4% were males, slightly different to the overall population, which was closer to half-half, male-female. Another aspect of the Christian population which continues to change over time is in relation to cultural diversity. According to the 2011 census, just over 3/4 of the Christian population were Australian-born. 10 years later, 2021, 72.4% of Christians were born in Australia. To look at it in another light, the proportion of Christians born overseas in English and non-English speaking countries rose from 22.5% to 26.6% in a 10-year period. However, where you are in Australia will reveal a slightly different picture of Christianity, as this map shows. I don't have time to go into that map in too much detail, but I can provide you with the slides at a later time if you would like them. But what the slide shows is that if you live in New South Wales or Queensland or within their capital cities, you will have a higher proportion of Christians in your area than if you live in somewhere like Tasmania or in the ACT. This next slide provides you with a bit of a history of Christianity in Australia over the past 120 years. You'll note by following the brown line from the left to the right, the continued steady growth in the Christian population from Federation in 1901 to around 2011. Apart from a small blip in the mid-1970s when there was a small decline. However, in the past 10 years, further to the right of the graph, you can see there has been significant decline. An alternative way of showing trends is to look at Christians as a percentage of the overall population, as this next slide shows. Again, I won't go into too much detail, but the line on this slide does offer a slightly different trend to that in the previous slide, in that there's been a gradual decline in the number of Christians as a proportion of the total population since around the early 1960s. Although the past 10 years or so reveals a similar trajectory to that shown in our previous slide. In terms of the various Christian denominations, there have been some interesting changes in the past 5 years. The slide on your screen now shows a bar chart with the percentage change in growth between 2016 and 2021 in just a few Christian denominations. The horizontal line in the middle of the graph is the baseline set at zero change. The Baptists and the Seventh-day Adventists had very minimal growth between 2016 and 2021, around 1%. So their bars are very thin, very close to the line. Similarly, the Pentecostals have a very thin bar, but declines slightly. In contrast, the denominations which witnessed the largest proportional decline were the Salvation Army, 28%, the Uniting Church, 23%, and the Anglicans, 20%. You probably noticed the two denominations which had some stronger growth, the Eastern Orthodox and the Oriental Orthodox. That is not insignificant that two denominations with large numbers of immigrants increased between 2016 and 2021. Keep in mind though, the bar chart in this slide shows percentage change, not numerical change in the denominations. The Catholics, for example, saw a smallish decline of around 4% in that 5-year period, which represents 216,000 people, whereas the Salvation Army saw the largest proportional decline of 28%, that represents 13,500 people. There's one Christian group which I haven't shown on that bar chart, but I think should be mentioned because they grew by just over 12%. They are those Australians who do not identify with any denomination, but who simply identify as Christian. They are a significant group because of that very fact, and they are almost as numerous now as those who identify with the Uniting Church. Another significant overall change in Christianity, when we drill down a bit more into the census data, is the change in patterns of identification, or de-identification really, in the various age groups. Similar to the previous bar chart, this one shows the change between 2016 and 2021, but in the numbers of people identifying as Christian by the different age groups. Again, without going into too much detail, what this chart reveals is the fact that the movement away from identification with a Christian denomination is evident in all age groups under 65. That is striking. I've briefly presented you with some data according to the National Census. The census paints a reliable snapshot of Australians at a particular point in time. I think the data provides an important first step in understanding a particular context, I should say. But there are a few other areas which also need further investigation and thought, of which detailed analysis will have to wait for another time. Firstly, painting a snapshot of church attendance. Recent data shows there's been continued decline in attendance at worship services. Fewer people are attending. Excuse me, I lost my slide. Fewer people are attending, but also more people are attending less regularly. We're also we're still in a period after a global pandemic. Don't know what happened there. We're still in a period after a global pandemic where it's not still not quite clear the impact COVID-19 has had on church attendance and may continue to have on that. We're also not sure of its impact on participation in other church activities or roles. Similarly, COVID-19 has impacted volunteering rates. but to what extent, we still don't quite know that either. Of course, the backdrop to all of this is that we're in an age where there is huge societal change in religious beliefs, but also in attitudes towards Christians and churches. The big question, of course, is what does Australia's changing religious landscape mean for Kairos Prison Ministry? I pray that your next few days will provide fruitful conversation as you seek to explore your ministry further. I wish you well in your endeavours. Thank you.